Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video today. This is going to be episode 3 of the Auto Produce Boss Wing series, and we're going to be wrapping it up today. Make sure that if you like this content, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell so that you get updates when I upload them and you never miss an episode. And as well, check me out on Instagram at Wrench Rampage. Hey guys, so next year I'm setting everything up for paint, and so you can see from the sort of racking behind me here, this is kind of things that you have to do when you paint, and these are hours and things that probably would be attributed to prep and setup, and it's very time consuming, to be totally blunt. So I'm not a huge fan of painting spoilers because of this, the time-consuming nature. But with this project, because I was restoring the Boss Produce blade, the spoiler part, I didn't want to put it on a spoiler that looked terrible, because I'm refinishing something that's going to be connected directly to something else, and so. So just taking a look at how some of this is mounted, just for maybe your interest's sake. I don't do a whole lot of, I do a lot of paint and body actually. However, I don't record a lot of it because I don't know, myself, I guess it's maybe not interesting. I like the results obviously, but so what I've done here, a shape like these spoiler blades is very elaborate. I think that, you know, just for interest's sake, the idea is that you have a gun and you have to get even paint distribution. So now the shapes here where you have to get underneath and around the back, which this spot here is going to be a little difficult, but not terrible. All of this has to be set up so that it can be painted and refinished correctly. So I've fastened it to a rod off of a piece of plywood that's on one of the standard sort of racks that you get for auto body stuff. Here's the center support of the spoiler. Again, I've taken some effort to have it overhang so that I'm able to get a good angle on here, right? And then over here, the middle blade of the spoiler, sort of in the biplane spoiler setup. I've attached a few pieces of rod here to the spoiler. And what that's for is that so I'm able to, halfway through my paint job, flip this over and do the underside without disturbing the finish. So all of this stuff is basically setup that's required to paint something effectively and get a decent finish. Now, again, the idea here is to get a uniform finish so that when I put this spoiler on my freshly painted trunk, that it doesn't look ridiculous, right? And so I'm going to paint all of this in pieces. So that I don't have any cutoff lines or weird overspray on the parts, and then I'm going to reassemble it. So this is part of what it takes to get a decent finish on some complex parts here. And here we are, the paint's done on the spoiler parts. It went okay. I didn't get a lot of dust in the paint, which is nice because I don't like to polish anything, because that's a whole bunch of extra work. So let's take a look here. I also got underneath That's done as well. And no runs or anything from the clear. So turned out rather nice. Okay, so the next step is to let this cure, and then we're going to get to reassembly, and we'll also go over the Boss Produce wing goes on a little bit differently than the traditional aluminum or alloy wing. So I'll just go over that. The hinges are a little bit different. So we'll go over some assembly. If you guys ever do get a hold of this wing, at least you'll have an idea of how it goes together. It is fairly simple, but we'll go over it anyway. And so we'll give this overnight to dry, and we'll start on assembly. Okay, so for assembly here for the Boss Produce wing, the difference between the blades is fairly obvious. Now, on the stock one, there is a plate on the end of the spoiler, and there is a hinge and a second plate here. So on the Boss Produce wing, there's just a stud. Now what that eliminates is this inner piece of metal. So what we're going to be doing is fastening this piece, which ends up mounting to here. We're going to fasten it onto this stud first to set things up. Okay, so when you take off the 10mm bolt here, what you're going to have is what looks like this. You're going to have the nut for the stud, a washer with some plastic rubberized coating on it, the bracket, and then another washer. And that's going to be all pulled off the stock spoiler, so this stud here. So in putting it onto the Boss Produce spoiler, it will be washer, metal bracket, washer, and the nut. Okay, so the 10mm nut right here, you can hand tighten it. If you want to put some blue Loctite on there, that would be a good idea. But just make sure that it's tightened up good, but be cautious because the stud, you do not want to spin it inside this carbon blade, because otherwise, well, if it's that case, you're going to be drilling it out and putting in a nutsert or something like that. So don't do that. It can be tight to the point where it's a little bit difficult to rotate this bracket, and keep in mind that this is not going to be turned very often, because all this is allowing is the attack angle of this blade, and it's going to be set with another fastener that goes through here into the end plates. So next step is to grab those end plates and attach them on here. Okay, so this is about the part where you'd want to break out a moving blanket, because you'll have to lay the spoiler down. And what you're going to be doing is, you can see that Allen key there. You'll be installing 4 fasteners that are into the metal plate that runs through the end of the spoiler. So this is the one that was rusted out in the previous spoilers. So the plate anchors the top blade, and it runs through the spoiler to the bottom right here. And there's some small Allen head type fasteners that need to fasten the blade to the end plates. Okay, so at this point, we've assembled the middle biplane blade, put in the LED light, put on the center support, fed the wire from the LED light through here. So now the idea would be to flip this over and attach it here and here. And you can get to those fasteners through the bottom of the spoiler pad. And these are just large screws that go through the bottom. All right, so let's do that next. Okay, so you flip it over on your moving blanket, not to scratch the heck out of everything. And the two fasteners are in there. 1, 2, they're a bit hard to see, but they're there. And that's it. So now this has to go onto the trunk. All right, so here we have the Auto Produce Boss wing. It's complete. It's on the trunk. Now I have to put the trunk on the car. It was worth the work. Turned out really nice. I'll have a couple still shots up on my Instagram for this. But yeah, it's nice. It's a great shape. Like I said earlier, it's early on. It's sort of when Veris started to do those quote unquote 3D spoiler type shapes. This is where this came from, around the same time, and still definitely holds up today style wise. So nice sort of gurney flap shape on the back, and it retains that sort of 4-tier adjustability that the stock wing had. Yeah. So the next step is going to be very carefully putting it back on the car, and then I think we're good for the trunk and wing restoration. So let's get this thing on the car and get it squared away. All right, so the trunk is back on. I'm just running the car through idle relearn because I've had it with the battery off for quite some time, probably a couple weeks, and that's going fine. So let's take a look at this spoiler. All right, not the best lighting conditions here, but all right, so this is it. The wing is finally on the car. Take a look. All right, so Evo 6 is done. Well, done-ish as far as I'm concerned. There's the wing from Auto Produce Boss in all its glory. All right, guys, so the Evo 6 has been pretty much complete. There's a few things, like I've said on earlier videos, that I have to do. I got to take it for a ride to work out a few of the sort of new modified car kinks. I need to get an alignment done. I need to recharge the AC. But other than that, the car runs and drives. It's come a long way from picking it up as a roller a few years back, and then blowing it up at the track, blowing up an Evo 8 engine, and then back to full Evo 6 spec, sort of a stock plus build. Doesn't have a bigger turbo, isn't running a standalone or anything like that. Lots of bolt-ons though. And so we'll see this summer. I'm going to take it out a bunch of times to some car shows, drive it around, see how I enjoy it. And yeah, I'll be continuing working on other JDM cars in the meantime. I have a GT4 that I need to work on, so a Celica WRC GT4 94 that I bought I guess early last year. And I have my GTR that runs and drives, but it's just sitting there. It definitely needs some stuff done to it. Needs a bunch of stuff. So I'd like to get working on that as well. I will try and get updates up on the YouTube channel as much as I can. Hopefully still 2 or 3 or 4 times a month, but we will see. So yeah, the Evo 6 is wrapped up. I hope you enjoyed this series, and you'll see it again obviously throughout the summer. I'll be attending car shows and doing other things, but thank you for tuning in for this series, and I'll be putting up more JDM content in the future. Have a good night.